What's happening, everybody? Ryan Thomas here on the Thomas Take Sports podcast, recapping all things AFC wildcard game, Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, right here, right now for the Bills Mafia. This was a very interesting game, to say the least. I want to remind you guys from the jump, from the top, the bottom left corner, that's where you will see my social media. Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. Feel free to throw me a follow. Really appreciate the love and support. I also want to remind everybody that is my Instagram as well. For any Instagram users out there, that's where you can find my Instagram as well. In terms of finding more additional sports content, podcast updates, guest updates, anything you guys are looking to find on all things, yours truly, Thomas Take Sports Podcast. You enjoy the content, feel free to enjoy more content on those avenues. Really appreciate the love and support. Wow. What a day today it was. What a day today it was. I want to remind you guys, too, right now in some NFL wildcard action, you got the Giants and the Vikings 24-21. Last night, the Jacksonville Jaguars pulled off the comeback that I thought they could with a 31-30 victory as the clock expired. And wow, what a game that was. And Brock Purdy, shout out to Brock Purdy doing his thing as the 49ers are undefeated, not only since they began starting Brock Purdy, but Christian McCaffrey. Since the Christian McCaffrey trade, the Niners are undefeated. So let's talk about the game that you're all here to tune into, that you all tuned into today. The Buffalo Bills, as they beat the Miami Dolphins with some adversity by a score of 34-31. I went on a lot of shows this week. And in those shows, I talked specifically about how I felt like the Bills would blow out the Miami Dolphins. Most quote-unquote experts believed that the Bills would blow out the Miami Dolphins, myself included. Add my name to that list. I thought the Bills would just blow past the Dolphins and that this game was going to be not much of a game. Really just the Bills running it up, getting the exposure of Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on the call. CBS Sports, 1 o'clock on a Sunday in Orchard Park, New York. It was just teed up for us to just put forth a dominant performance. And yet this game had a ton of adversity in it that the Buffalo Bills faced and the Buffalo Bills brought on themselves. I'm going to talk about that. I don't want to come off as if I'm being a hater or negative or anything like that. But if you were to look at the game book of this game, you're to go roster by roster, just looking at Super Wildcard Weekend 2022. It's a sunny day, 28 degrees at kickoff time. You got the Buffalo Bills, who have just really been a force to be reckoned with offensively, defensively. The Miami Dolphins, you're looking at how their chances were little to none heading into this game. You start the action in the first quarter, business as usual. Dawson Knox, a 6-yard TD from Josh Allen, and a beautiful play prior to that from Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs to put the Bills in that type of field position that led to Dawson Knox getting a touchdown. James Cook rushes one in the next drive. The Bills are up 14-0. Then Tyler Bass kicks a 33-yard field goal to put the Bills up 17-0 after the Bills were unable to get it in the end zone on a catch that wasn't a catch, according to the men in the booth. Jason Sanders and the Miami Dolphins slowly but surely answer back as Sanders kicked a 40-yard field goal to make it 17-3. Then a 48-yard field goal to make it 17-6. Then a 37-yard field goal to make it 17-9. And then the Miami Dolphins tie it up right before the half. 33 seconds left in the half. Skylar Thompson fires a pass to Mike Gesicki for a 7-yard TD, making the score 17-17 at halftime. After the Bills had a 17-point lead, they were unable to keep it, and Miami ties it up 17-17. We go into the half with 4 seconds left on the clock prior to the half ending. Bills get in a field goal range. Tyler Bass kicks a 39-yard field goal. Then the first half happens. Our defense shuts down Miami as Miami was receiving the football based on winning the coin toss, choosing to defer so that they got the ball at the half. Our defense does what it needs to do. They shut it down. And then the offense fumbles the football. Josh Allen fumbles the football. Zach Zeiler picks it up, runs it in for a touchdown. And the Bills are already pinned back in their own territory, so it was fairly easy for him to do that. Miami is up 24-20. Then we got that bounce back opportunity by the Buffalo Bills, and it was one that I was itching to see. Cole Beasley, 3rd and goal, converts on a 3rd down on this drive, but also gets a 7-yard touchdown reception from Josh Allen, making it 27-24. Gabriel Davis, he gets his own touchdown, 34-24. Miami, Jeff Wilson runs it into the end zone, 31-34. And then the Buffalo Bills get the ball back after forcing the Miami Dolphins to turn the ball over on downs. The Bills get the ball back. Devin Singletary runs an 8-yard run to force the clock at 34 seconds, putting the Bills in a victory formation to win this one 34-31. There are a lot of facets within a game that you can go over, and you can brush through this game with a fine-tooth comb ad nauseum. But when you go Bills by the numbers, as I like to, and discuss the Buffalo Bills stat line, Josh Allen, 39 passing attempts, 23 completed, so 23 of 39, 352 passing, 3 passing touchdowns, and 2 interceptions with a fumble. Stephon Diggs, 7 catches on 9 targets, 114 yards, no touchdowns. Gabriel Davis, 6 catches, 113 yards, and 1 touchdown. As I mentioned, Beasley and Knox, the other 2 guys with touchdowns in this game. But I am going to give credit to a young man on this team that I felt like made the play of the game as the Bills were able to bounce back and beat the Dolphins after they faced adversity, and that's Khalil Shakir. He made one of the best catches I've ever seen in this one, and a lot of the young guys in this one, Kyer Elam, James Cook, Khalil Shakir, those 3 guys, young players, right? Young players indeed, rookies. Those 3 rookies were essential to the Buffalo Bills and their hopes on winning this game. They were relied upon, and they stepped up big time. I'm very curious to see what happens now with Kyer Elam and whether or not he actually suits up next week, depending on who we play. I hope he does. But James Cook is cooking. He's getting it done. This guy is getting better and better each and every week. I love the way he has been used these last few weeks, but I thought there was a lot of opportunities in this one to use him more, to wear down the clock, that we wouldn't be putting Miami back into another situation where they could potentially get the ball and put it in the end zone and get points. There were moments in this game where I felt like Josh Allen, in his own right, was forcing things a little bit, was not taking what the defense gave him. He's trying to chuck it deep. And, on occasion, Miami, they dared Josh Allen to throw it deep. They blitzed. They did the whole engage 8. They blitzed. They wanted to get to Josh Allen and to get into his head. And Josh Allen, to his credit in the first half, made the throws that he needed to make. But for whatever reason, once that first half was over and Miami creeped back into it, it was only 20-17 after the Bills, came away feeling pretty funky, I should say, in terms of what we saw from the Bills going up 17-0, then losing that 17-point lead. Miami ties it, but then Buffalo kicks a field goal with 4 seconds left in the half. As I mentioned, Buffalo's got their heads up. They're up 3 points, but man, a lot of missed opportunities in that first half as well as in this game that could have made the score drastically different. As I mentioned, Josh Allen by the numbers, you have a quarterback that you live or die by what your quarterback does in this league. You just do. This is a quarterback-driven league. 23 of 39, that's almost a 50% completion percentage. I mean, in terms of if you had 3 less pass attempts 3 less completions and 1 more pass attempt, he'd be 20 of 40. Not the best completion percentage day for Josh Allen. 352, that's pretty good. But the key to this game, the story of this game, is the turnovers. And I'm not going to sit here and put Josh Allen on blast for the interception to Cole Beasley. It one bounced off his shoulder. Maybe he threw the football too hard. A lot of guys are having trouble catching the football today based on the 28-degree temp, based on, are you catching it with your hands or your body? It's a business decision. The digits, the fingers, they feel a little stiff. So you try to catch it with your body, and then it just bounces off because that football is a brick. It's a brick. So maybe that was a little bit of the case there. But to me, if I were to say what was the one facet of this game that led to the Buffalo Bills winning this game, it is without a shadow of a doubt their defense. Without a shadow of a doubt, their defense won them this game. And, dare I say it? I'm going to say it. But the Bills advanced today, but much work needs to be done. Because if you had any quarterback lining up for the Miami Dolphins, I'm not talking Tua. I'm not talking because Tua was out. But any healthy quarterback that's better than Skylar Thompson. Let's just say Tua was healthy. This game would have been drastically different. Skylar Thompson was so out of his element. Skylar Thompson was so in over his head. Skylar Thompson, I felt sorry for him at points in the game. I truly did. Even though I'm a Bills fan, I'm rooting for the Bills to get the W. I felt bad for Skylar Thompson at points in this game. Truthfully, I felt like Miami could have had a much better chance at sealing the deal in this one if they actually had a decent quarterback leading the way that could actually drive the football down the field with accuracy and a quarterback that was actually sure of himself. Skylar Thompson looked so unsure of himself that Miami was never really fully confident that they were going to come away with this one. A lot of things would have had to have happened in order for Skylar Thompson, in order for the Buffalo Bills, to win this game or to lose this game. More turnovers would have needed to happen. I froze there, so that's why I kind of froze there, literally. My screen froze on the live stream. Sorry about that. So where I was going with that is, okay, you got Derek Carr against the Bills today. With this Bills team that showed up today, offensively turning the football over, giving it right back to the opposition, there were points left out on the field by Miami's offense in this game. And a lot of that had to do with Skylar Thompson not being accurate. A lot of it had to do with Tyreek Hill also not catching the football. A lot of it had to do with Jalen Waddle also not catching the football. In moments where Skylar Thompson did throw decent passes, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle just weren't catching them. I don't know if it was like a shock that, oh my God, this ball's coming my way and it's right on the money. This never happens with this quarterback, so I can't wait to catch it, and then they drop it. I don't know what it was. I honestly, I'm not being facetious in any way. I'm being honest. I've never seen anything like it. This game was sloppy. This was a sloppy, long game. The game ended at, 4:30, 4:45? I mean, football games usually end at 4 o'clock because of the scoring. This game ended much later than games normally do. And it was just utterly shocking to me that we're at this point of, oh my God, we might actually lose this game. We had to hold off the Dolphins. And when I look at the AFC playoff bracket, tonight, Baltimore and Cincinnati. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I really feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are a much better team than the Kansas City Chiefs, just based on what they got, especially against the Buffalo Bills. They're about 4 or 5 wide receivers deep, whereas Kansas City is relying on Travis Kelce, relying on Pat Mahomes to be this improvisational wizard of a quarterback, and that's what he has been. So why would you not rely on that? But when you look at how deep Cincinnati is, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon. I mean, they got some gangsters on that offense. They really do. They got some studs, flat out studs that I think rival really anyone, including the Buffalo Bills. And when I talked about the stat sheet and going Bills by the numbers and how do I feel like this team needs to get better, there's still areas that this team needs to get better in, and we're in the playoffs. This is a team that I have always said. I feel like at a nauseum point sometimes that the Bills always play down to the level of the team that they play. They never play up. They always play down. They play up against teams that they're gonna go head to head with. Like they'll play up against the Chiefs, but they'll play down against the Dolphins. It makes no sense to me at all. It's just the way that it is, I guess. These are two teams that they play each other, 3 times a season. They're AFC East rivals for a reason. And Mike McDaniel and Sean McDermott going head to head once again the 3rd time this season. Outside of, the fact that Buffalo lost to Miami, I would say that the Miami Dolphins were a much tougher challenge this year to the Buffalo Bills than the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know why. I mean, I could go back and watch the game and I could say, well, maybe Miami is able to pressure Josh Allen better. Probably be right on that. Is it the fact that, Miami has a lot of speed? So defensively, Buffalo's spread a little bit thin and they're forced to go one-on-one with some of these speed guys. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are 2 of the best players at the position and they're on the same team. So it's like a Dwayne Wade, LeBron James effect like it was in Miami. But you got those 2 guys, those 2 ballers as wide receivers on one team. But you got Skylar Thompson throwing them the football. And I will say, credit to Miami for the performance that I did not think they were capable of. I really didn't. When I'm quote unquote wrong or when I make a proclamation and it doesn't necessarily come true to the fullest to full effect, I guess you could say. I'm more than willing to say congrats and good job. But when I look at this game, I think Mike McDaniel should come away from it saying, man, we were 3 points away from beating a team that might end up winning the Super Bowl. Why were we not able to get it done and leave no stone unturned in terms of trying to get that done by getting a quarterback that's going to stay healthy? I think the Tua era is over in Miami. I don't see it continuing. And they need a solid, legitimate quarterback to throw the football to their big investments. They've invested high draft capital in Jalen Waddle. They've invested high draft capital in Tyreek Hill via the trade, as well as monetarily, cap space-wise. And that's a big question. What is Miami going to do at quarterback? Obviously, Skylar Thompson was not, is not, never will be the answer for the Miami Dolphins. I just want to look at his stat line as well. Skylar Thompson was 18 of 45, 220 yards, a passing touchdown and 2 interceptions. He had a QBR of 44.7. Tyreek Hill, 7 of 69. He was targeted 15 times, so he caught less than half of the amount of targets that he was thrown. 7 of 15, I should say. And, I felt in this game, my biggest takeaway, if I had one, moments in this game, I felt like, man, the Bills could lose this game because our offense wasn't moving the football. And situationally, I'll say this as well. Shockingly enough, there are moments in this game where Sean McDermott would call a timeout in a pivotal moment, and then the play would happen, and it would work in Buffalo's favor. And then the timeout would be wasted, but then the team would get another opportunity to make that play. It happened on a 4th down play. It happened on a 3rd down play. That just blew my mind. You put your team out there to see what the other team's got. I get that, but you're burning timeouts when it's a close game. We don't know when or if we're going to get the ball back, or let's just say when we do, how much time is actually going to be out there for us to compete and go out and try to get a touchdown. And you only got 1 timeout because Sean McDermott used those timeouts under quote-unquote crucial situations. It was frustrating. There were moments in that whole rant right there that I just had where I felt like I'm still flabbergasted by that. I really am. Running on the day for the Buffalo Bills, Devin Singletary was 10 carries for 48 yards. James Cook was 12 carries for 39 yards and a touchdown. I talked about how good James Cook has looked in previous weeks, about how I wanted to see more of him today. Obviously, you look at the yards per carry average and you say to yourself 3.3 yards, but you look at the down and distance or situational play calling in which James Cook was used, and you say to yourself, well, it's pretty damn obvious that they're going to be going to James Cook when he's out on the field, and it's an obvious running situation, an obvious running formation. James Cook is not going to be nearly as effective. I really feel that there's a lot to learn from in this game from Sean McDermott. He can learn from this game. From Ken Dorsey, he can learn from this game. Go back to the drawing board because what you have in front of you is potentially a shootout. And I'm not going to write off the Baltimore Ravens because I wrote off the Miami Dolphins and they played the Bills to the tune of only losing by 3 points. This is the NFL playoffs. I think I forget that sometimes as these playoffs come to, rear its ugly head in terms of starting. And I say to myself, well, any team the Bills face in the first round, they're going to beat. Well, they did beat the Dolphins, but they barely beat the Dolphins when we were expecting them to blow through the Dolphins. So any team can beat anybody. This is the NFL playoffs. It's a very tough league. When you're playing in the bracket, it's only going to get tougher because the teams are very, very good. But this defense really did make plays when it counted. Matt Milano made a lot of plays. Jermaine Edmonds was cracking people left and right. I thought both of those guys looked fantastic. Ed Oliver had a nice run stuff or two, let alone a sack. Jordan Poyer made some nice plays today. Kyer Elam. I mean, really, my big 3 stars of the game, if I were to say 3 stars, they would be the 3 rookies. They would be Kyer Elam. They would be James Cook. And they would be Khalil Shakir. I felt like all 3 of those guys played really, really well today. They were crucial towards Buffalo's win. And we're going to need them because I think next week's matchup, let's just say next week's matchup is the Bengals. We already went down that road and what I think of the Bengals, but can the Bills beat the Bengals? Yes, they can. Should they beat the Bengals? Yes, they should. Throw that out there. Let's just say that tonight the Baltimore Ravens come away with the victory. Anything can happen. Let's just say Brent Hundley or Anthony Brown, who are playing for the quote-unquote injured Lamar Jackson. Let's just say one of those guys steps out onto the field and just lights it up and just tears it up and just plays a hell of a freaking game. And we just see the Ravens just go scorched earth on the Cincinnati Bengals and knock the Bengals out of the playoffs. Shocking. Let's just say that happens. You're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars then if you're the Buffalo Bills, and the Kansas City Chiefs will be playing the Ravens. I feel confident that the Bills at their best can beat anybody. But when the Bills show up and they play down to the level of who they're playing, then we're talking about a completely different team. And I don't know why that is. For as great a head coaching job as Sean McDermott has done through the last 6-7 years, let alone especially this season, I don't know why we're still seeing that. And I don't know if it's just a leadership thing from within the roster, or maybe they're in their own head, or maybe the expectations, the anticipation is just too much. I don't know, but I've seen it a lot these last 5-6 weeks. We've seen it when the Bills have lost this year, and the 3 losses in 16 games. They lost to Miami, they lost to the Jets, they lost to the Vikings. And in those games, they played down to the level of their opponent, allowed their opponent to stay in the game, and allowed their opponent to actually win the game. Created an opportunity for them to win the game. So it's hard, but realistically, I feel like the Bills can beat any of these teams. They should be the AFC Championship team representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. But today made me a little bit leery of sitting on this show and saying, hey, Super Bowl champs coming right at you. They got to earn it, and they have to be respectful of the teams that they're playing. They can't just go in thinking that, okay, we're the big bad Buffalo Bills. We're going to roll through everybody. We're going to get it done. And no, that's not how it works. It's just not. Anything that you had planned, it never goes according to plan. So 34 to 31, a win is a win. There was a lot to like in this one, a lot to not like, but all in all, we advanced. We won. We sent the Dolphins home. Anything I said about Mike McDaniel and his job being on the line with the performance that the Dolphins put out in terms of playing hard, playing for their head coach, they were definitely doing that. If this would have been a blowout, if Buffalo wouldn't have turned the football over, it would have been a blowout because Skylar Thompson didn't lead the Dolphins offense to a first down until late in the second quarter. Um, and I think that the turnovers were largely why this game was as close as it was. I'll be real. Um, but with that being said, Miami did step up when they needed to. When Miami was in position to win the game, they were stepping up. Guys were flying all over the field trying to shut down Josh Allen and that offense, and it's easier said than done. So well done to Miami for a valiant effort. Well done to Mike McDaniel for getting his guys amped up for this one. I doubted whether he could. He proved me wrong. I'll say it. Do I think he's a great head coach? No. Is he the head coach that I would want him for my team? No. Do I think he can lead the Dolphins to a Super Bowl? No. Do I think the Dolphins quite possibly could be headed down a very horrible trajectory? Yes. All those things still ring true. And the Buffalo Bills got to sit back, kick back, and see who they play next week after tonight's games. So tonight's games will result in whether we play Cincinnati or Jacksonville. And I'm not going to go on a limb and say which one I would prefer because I just want the Buffalo Bills to play like I know how they can play. Can be dominant on all three phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. We hope to see it. So with that being said, I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Buffalo Bills post-game recap. The Bills hold off the Dolphins by beating the Dolphins with some adversity by a score of 34 to 31. Hopefully next playoff round we'll find out who we're playing tonight, of course, whether it's the Bengals or Jaguars, whether the Bills play the Bills play the Bengals or the Jaguars. We know one thing is for sure: 75,000 strong will be in attendance and ready to cheer on the Buffalo Bills, or 73,000 strong. We'll be ready to cheer on the Buffalo Bills. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. This was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Take care and go Bills.